I want to talk about this movie you're directing.
Okay.
Because I didn't know until because you and I ran into each other, talked about you having coming in. I had no idea that you were directing, had aspirations of being a director.
Yeah.
Tell me about this. Where'd you decide? Because it's a scary thing to go. Hey, because you're busy as shit doing comedy all the time. When you have the time to write a movie, or direct a movie,
You wrote it
put it
too?
all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just finished my hour special, and I was on the road, and I'd sat in the writers' room on Sullivan and Son for 3 years. So I really enjoyed that. I think getting to see the writing process, and I started getting more involved in reading about just scripts. So while I was on the road, I was like, well, I'm bored. I just finished this thing. I'll just write a screenplay to just see if I can do it.
Yeah.
And so I bought Save the Cat and Joseph Campbell and all these other books. And I knew the foundation, the structure, and I just thought, if I'm going to write anything, you write about what you know. And I haven't seen a great stand-up film. All the films that have stand-up's taken a back seat.
Punchline and it was front seat, but it was like a drama more than anything else, right?
Punchline was good, but there's no, there's no lockers in stand-up. There's,
Right.
It was just
Funny
so many
people.
things. Funny people. Oh, fuck that.
Yeah.
I know, I'm with you.
There's so many, even The Big Sick, stand-up was not a part of it. It was
wasn't
the
the
B
main
story,
thing, right.
If that. So I just thought nobody's done an actual film about stand-up that's great. So I thought, why not do it fish out of water? An MC, a kid that moonlights as a stand-up gets he's got the corporate job, but essentially the film is every comic has had that moment where it's like, do I pursue my bliss or do I take the safe route, right? So put the character in that time frame or in that frame, and then essentially he gets offered his first MC slot at an A club, which is the Improv, and he gets to hit the road for the first time. And I thought, no matter what part of where you are in your career as a stand-up, you're going to be on the road. And the road is such a fascinating aspect of stand-up to me, and so many people don't know what it's really like. So I thought, put this kid on the road. So the whole first half of the film is the romanticism and optimism, excitement and partying of hanging out with the feature act. And then the back half of the film is all the isolation, sobriety, realism, and
Camaraderie
and solitude. Yeah, well, and solitude of hanging out with a road-weary headliner, somebody who's just been over it. So you get all three echelons of a career in stand-up. You're either an MC, a feature, or a headliner, and it's all encapsulated within a few days that weekend. And I think that I've never seen a film done that way to capture stand-up that way, and I'm just super excited for this.
And we can say the name of it, right? It's
called
The Opening Act, the Mark Ellis story.
Jimmy O. Yang's the MC, Alex Moffat from SNL is the feature, Cedric the Entertainer's the headliner. Then you got Bill Burr as his
Are they
boss.
starring themselves or are they characters?
No, they're all characters, yeah. But Bill Burr's his boss, Roy Wood Jr.'s cubicle mate. You got Whitney Cummings, Angela Johnson, Kathleen Madigan,
Porter's
Ken
in it,
Jeong,
right?
Chris Porter, Tom Segura, Russell Peters.
Wow.
It just goes on and on and on. So many great comics. Mark's not in it.
And Mark's not in it. Perfect. So, well, the
What
funny
was his audition like? Was it any good?
right?
What-
Did you audition for the movie?
No, I did not audition for the movie.
You never got the call.
I was not called to audition for the movie.
Did anybody audition for the movie, or are these your friends, or how did it
Jeez.
work?
I don't think we even had auditions, to be honest. Yeah, we had some auditions, yeah, but for the most part, it was like,
You know what they can
thinking
do.
who would be great for this, and then making a phone
So
call.
Jimmy O. Yang didn't audition.
No.
Did you knew him from beforehand?
Yeah, knew
Yeah.
him beforehand.
Okay.
Once he was cast, that's when I regretted it. But it was like, fuck it, it's too late.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that because as far as television goes, I do think that what's the Santino show? The
I'm Dying Up
the
Here,
Dying
yeah.
Up Here, which I watched. I feel that is pretty, for a lot of it, from what I was watching television-wise, hits it in a way. I know it's very different from the book, but watching that show is very therapeutic for me. It reminded me of my days at the store, very much so. But I think you're 100% right when it comes to film. Haven't seen it done the right way. I've been wanting to see something done the right way.
Yeah.
How do you get this thing made now? Because it's not that easy to get a movie made. You can write it and say I want to direct it, but how do you get it made?
I wrote it. I gave Vince Vaughn and I have been friends for a very long time, so I said, hey, would you take a look at this? I just wrote this, just as an exercise.
He's a big comedy fan.
Huge comedy
Yeah.
fan. Read it. He's like, you got something here. Let's work on this. So I spent essentially a year and a half on the road. I'd get notes from them. I go on to Cincinnati, come home, go over it again. Okay, here's the next scene. Think about this. So it was
When
just
you say them, you just mean him?
Peter Billingsley and Vince Vaughn,
Right,
as
they're
producing
producing
partners.
partners.
So the Wild West Picture Show production. So basically, for a year and a half, I just did that, and we grinded it, got it in shape, and then Vince had done Brawl in Cell Block 99.
Right.
I'd seen Bone Tomahawk. And the guys that financed that and dragged across concrete with him and Mel they just filmed that. The financiers had read this script Vince passed along, and they were like, "This is great, let's do it."
Yeah.
So it kind of happened really quickly once Vince gave it to
And
these
when
guys.
he's passionate about it, that's going to help. So
Yeah.
Well, do you get a question about that too? Because I know you guys have been buddies for a bit, but I mean. We all have friends in this business. If you're doing it long enough, that if someone at that level, right, that you get hesitant at a second to go. I don't want to give them something. This is like one shot I got, but
For sure.
yeah. And like, you got to be that confident in to say this. I really believe in this thing, and I know he loves comedy. That's why I give it to him. Or do you ever say maybe I don't give him this one?
No, I gave him this one because I felt pretty confident about it. I felt I got the world right. I knew the world, and I know he's very fascinated with the world of stand-up. He's always asking me about stand-ups and what's this guy up to? Do you like this person? So he's very immersed in the world of comedy. So I gave it to him just as an exercise, not even thinking maybe this will get just like, hey, can you tell me if I'm on to something here? And then it just spiraled out of control.
Okay, you didn't have an intention of saying, "Hey, come on and produce this thing." It was more or less like, "Give me your feedback on it."
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool.
Really, yeah.
But
What was your
at what
first
point
script?
does
That you wrote?
Yeah, I wrote a second. I wrote one before that was like a more of a broad comedy, but I knew it was kind of.
at what point do you go from writing this and having Vince take a look and being like, "Yeah, I want to work with you on this," to you being the director of the film?
Yeah.
Well-
did you have intention of directing it right away?
When I wrote it, I was like, well, I'm too. If this ever came to fruition, and as it started coming along, Vince is like, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to be in it? I'm like, I'm too young to be the headliner, and I'm too old to be the MC in the feature. So there's not really any role in this for me. He's like, well, why don't you direct it? I'm like, well, I never directed anything. He's like, well, you also haven't written a screenplay before either. So you can do this. Nobody knows the story better than you. Just go for it. So then I'm taking master classes, and I'm reading, and all these different
Are you
books and
friends
everything.
with Mike Young?
I know
Friendly?
Mike Young. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Because Mike,
Good friends with Mike,
because
yeah.
Mike did the same thing. We've had Mike on a couple times too. Mike's directed a few things now too. So I was curious if you ever reached out to Mike and talked to him. Also, if you guys were, because Mike's directed like 2 or 3 features now, right?
He's also got a rap album, so let's not take him too seriously. You've heard it.
I have heard it. Yeah.
You've heard it.
Okay.
No, I
It's kinda
do
like
love
fun.
Mike.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think nobody, no matter what, I talked to Neil Brenner, I talked to Whitney Cummings, Whitney directed, Neil's directed. Nothing can prepare you for it. It's fucking mind-blowing how much work it is. So I think as much, and everybody can critique or have an opinion on a film. It's fucking hard to make a movie.
What kind of
really
director did you find yourself to be? Did you ever yell at anybody?
No.
Did you ever? I mean, it was everybody kind of working together with you. It's your buddies too, so you're not gonna
For sure, yeah. I think it was I think, look, if it was a different subject matter, maybe you could get into an issue there. But because all the comics knew the world so well, and you're doing a radio scene with Russell Peters, it's like, you've done morning radio. You know how to do this.
Right.
Eliza and Brooks Whelan, did it. So it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
So you already finished production? Where are you in the process right
We're
now?
editing now. I
you're
just
in
saw
post.
my cut yesterday, so as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to go back and get through it. Vince and I watched it yesterday.
Oh,
so.
cool. So again, I
The
guess
Byrne cut. That's
Yeah.
like
The Byrne cut, yeah.
That's
It's
the
a
Blu-ray
deep
where
Byrne
people are like,
cut.
I mean, the movie was good in theaters, but I need more extras. I need more bonus features.
Well, I guess that's another director question. Is that so? Do you find yourself? Is there a lot of changes you want to make? Are you your worst critic? Like, when you're watching this, do you love it? Like, how are you feeling about it?
I do love it because I knew the script was. I knew we had a great script because the table reads always did well. The scary thing for me was visually, is this going to translate? Yeah. There are things in the film that people are going to. There's no way. It's like everything in the film happened to me when I was on the road. Oh, wow. So it's all true. Like, it all happened. But visually, is it going to translate as well as just reading it? And that to me was like, when we're watching the first pass, I'm like, God, I hope this scene works. There's this trailer park scene that it's so fucking funny. And when we watched the first cut, it was there already. And I was like, oh, my God, okay, good. This is going to be good. Because it is an indie film. It's not a broad film. It's more in the lines of like a Maid or Swingers or a Juno, somebody pursuing their bliss. And it's very grounded. But the the pieces that are comedic truly are there. I
That
believe.
was going to be my question. Was like, do you want people to walk away from this? Because you want
gotta
a lot
turn
of like,
around.
a lot of times when people do like, I'm dying up here. I don't laugh a lot during that show, if at all, because it's more of a drama. And a lot of times when they do stand-up comics, it's more about like, the doldrums. Would you rather have people walk away from this feeling good about themselves, feeling
For sure.
Okay,
And there's a
okay.
lot of inside baseball too, so that comics that are watching it go, yeah. There's a lot of lingo that's laced in there that's strictly there for the comics. But the bigger pieces are all there, and I think pursuing your bliss is a universal theme. And when we were watching the cut yesterday, and Vince was very optimistic, I was like, okay, I think we're on a good track here. There's a lot to do. So
Well, you said that obviously it's a lot of work, and you threw yourself into directing. But is it something you want to do again?
I would definitely like to take some time. I don't fancy myself a director by any means, but I think after having done it, it's like I would do that again. I like the camaraderie, and Mark knows this. When you're a comic, you're just packing your bag, and you're constantly by yourself, especially when you're working nonstop. But to be part of a team. And all these creative types, all the production designer, costume, everybody. It was a joy to work with everybody. It was great.
What's like the hardest thing about directing that you had no idea you even had to do that as a director? Because like when we're watching an NFL game, we see a coach
Say action. I didn't know that. Like
you say action.
You see it in the movies all the time, and then they're like, all right, we're ready to go, and you're sitting there, and they're like, you got to say. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, action. And then the comics like Jimmy and Alex Moffat, the first scene, the first day, they're just improvising at the end, and they kept talking, and the assistant director Hardy comes over. He goes, "They're gonna keep talking until you say cut." I was like, "Oh shit, yeah," and cut, yeah.
Right.
So like those things, but making your day is something I didn't anticipate. We were doing 12 pages a day, which is crazy to do 12 pages a day.
Ton of pages.
Yeah, we went 12 hours a day, 10, 12 hours a day. All the unions have their... But to look at the clock constantly and go, I hope we get the scene, and then getting all the coverage in there, that to me was just the thing I didn't anticipate via all the things I've seen, master classes, everything. It was like making your day was the scariest thing because it's money.
Yeah. Well, what else was going to ask you? Can you say what the budget was on the film?
2.4.
2.4.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's something that...
Is that Jordanian currency or is that's American?
Well,
Our
that's
dollars,
resold.
Jordanian dollar's pretty healthy right now.
All right, listen. So you're doing the cut now.
It's Dave and Buster's tokens.
Dave and Buster's.
That's some currency right there.
It's Bitcoin. So when do you guys? When are we looking to get it out in theaters?
I don't know if I'm supposed to say. We're trying to get it done by perhaps South by Southwest and seeing what we're going to do there. As for where it's going to live, that's all still up for debate. But I would love for it to see a theatrical release. That would be my goal.
Well, that's great. So the film is the opening act. It's from our buddy comedian Steve Byrne.
It's also got a documentary, yeah.
And you got
There
a
you go.
documentary as well too. Thank you for
That is going to
helping
be
me
in
on the
theaters
transition.
this weekend. Yeah.
So you've got a
Here's the
documentary
carrot,
coming
donkey.
out
Keep
also coming out this weekend. Can you give us a little bit about that before
We're premiering at the New York Comedy Club. Mark Ellis is going to be there.
yeah.
No,
Frank's dressed as a pirate.
And what's the document?
The doc is called Always Amazing. It's about the amazing Jonathan. It's going to be premiering this Saturday, 2 p.m. at the Raleigh Studios for the LA Liftoff Film Festival. So we're going to be there, and it's an hour-and-a-half film. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the amazing Jonathan.
Yeah.
Great comic magician. He was one of the first comics to have like a relevant, prominent half hour on Comedy Central when they first started doing them. And he was touring. He was a national headliner, and he was a headliner in Vegas for many years. And I got to know him for many years after opening for him when I was a feature act. And then Jonathan got diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, which essentially half his heart is operating. And you combine that with diabetes and a lifetime of drug addiction, it's not a good scenario.
Right.
So doctors gave him a year to live 4 years ago. And he's been sitting around waiting to die. And he retired from comedy. He retired in Vegas. And then he said, I'm going to get back on stage and see if I still got it. So he announced these 3 shows in Boston and the East Coast, and I said, somebody should document this.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, fuck, I'll just document it. And I just written the screenplay, so I knew story, narrative, and everything.
Directing 2 things like that.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so
Really
this
makes
is
me
before
sick. Crazy.
Really
this is before the
appalled.
film was even in motion, though.
Yeah.
I just finished it. I was still working on it. So I just grabbed some cameras. I got my buddy Jason Dallas, and we went out and did some interviews with Jonathan Copperfield, Penn Jillette, and we started getting these interviews. And really, Jonathan's the face of the film. The heart of the film, the real story is that when Jonathan was touring He went to Australia. It was a big market for him. And every time he came here, every year he was back, this 12-year-old kid, this 13-year-old, this 14-year-old kid was backstage waiting to get his autograph. And was fascinated with him. And Jonathan kind of took him under his wing, and they started keeping in touch. And this kid and his parents would come to the shows, and Jonathan would take care of him, teach him tricks. And then he started hiring him to be his tour manager when he came to Australia. And then he ended up hiring to be his tour manager when he was here in the States after Joel Osborne graduated high school. So throughout the course of the film, it's really like a Rick and Morty relationship. It's two people that should not be friends, on paper completely different. But Jonathan and Joel, it became a really fraternal relationship via overcoming the drug addiction, suicide attempt, all the things we detail
And that's
in the
like
film.
the main through line of the story is the relationship between these two.
Between these two guys.
Yeah.
And Joel meditates, and Jonathan's doing drugs, and Jonathan has him negotiating a multi-million-dollar deal with the Golden Nugget, and the kid's 18. And Jonathan's like, you got to go in there and say, this is what Jonathan wants, go fuck yourself, and then slam the door and walk out. And Joel's like, no, that's not how it's done, right? I don't know much, but you don't do it like that.
It's an amazing thing to watch, too, because I
saw
got a
it?
chance to see it, and Steve was asleep on the plane, and I hit play.
I was listening to Mark's newest album.
Still at the castle? Still at the castle.
Every album I release has some sort of castle reference.
Castle doors locked.
Still guard the castle.
Get out the moat.
And when you see, it's a moat, Josh.
I said
what
a
he
moat.
said.
Oh, I thought you said moot.
No,
Your Pittsburgh accent creeping in there.
My bad.
Speaking of moot points, here you go.
He might not be able to karaoke, but he can say moat.
You can't say moat. You see that through, and like I think Comedian's a really good documentary, the Jerry Seinfeld thing.
It was.
But the thing that's not in that's in this, is that Jerry and Orny, there's like one scene of them kind of hanging out, like ships passing in the night. Jerry tells them a story, and then they're off in their separate ways.
Right.
And you never really see if there is a mentorship or not with Jonathan and Joel. You see it, and you see how much they care about each other. And it really resonated with me, and will with you too, because you and I have been doing Schmoes for so long that there's kids that started watching us in high school.
Yeah.
And now you get emails from them, and they just graduated college, and they're working in film, and they're doing things that you and I can't do. And it's incredible to see the matriculation of somebody from a fan to as some sort of professional capacity to finding their own calling in life because of this mentorship they got.
Yeah.
So it really, I don't like a lot of Steve Byrne's comedy.
Right.
Doesn't not for me,
Right.
but the documentary is unbelievable to watch, and I was really impressed with my buddy.
That's great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Joel ends up opening for him on
look
the
at that.
show,
Okay.
so everything kind of comes full circle.
Yeah.
How
That's
do you
nice.
tell this all in a documentary that you started filming at the last part of? It's all via story. They're just recalling
footage
it, or
and stuff?
you're.
We called a lot of archival footage. That was the toughest part. You know, Mark and I were talking about the film, and he's just asking as a friend, and one of the most difficult things was culling all that archival stuff. Pics of him from San Francisco as a street magician, and he did a TV show with Murph Griffin that we found footage of, and you got to cull all that and document it all.
Right.
That was a lot more work than I anticipated.
That's crazy. So you wind up directing two things. You got a feature film and
Yeah.
you got a documentary. That's
And I'm here.
And you're here. You blew it.
Yeah.
You totally you're 100% accurate.
And
you blew it.
you just flew
You just
17
ruined your whole
hours.
career within a second.
For
each
Jordan
way.
with you, but
Yeah.
that was a blast. But like, look, it like, I think everybody has a story to tell,
Yeah.
and I think these days with the fact you can make a movie on your laptop, it's like, why not just get out there and try to see if you can do it? Because it's easy to sit there and. Your profession is to dissect and disseminate and break down the fun of films and these films that are so fun for
Our
us.
job
but-
is to take the fun out of movies. right. I like to think.
How are we
But
doing
I think
so
to anybody
far?
listening, it's like if you're that passionate about film, there's no better time than to try to do a film than right now.
Right.
They're affordable cameras. You could do it on your iPhone. Why not try to take a stab?
Yeah.
And if there's something subject matter, make a document. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm
I just
telling you.
you gave me the DVD last night, and the way you were kind of describing the amazing,
Did you
amazing
watch it?
Jonathan, I did. I watched Will You Be My Neighbor? Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Great.
The Mr.
Can I
Rogers
borrow it
documentary.
now?
Sure.
Thank you.
About the
Yeah.
former Air
I mean-
Force sniper, Fred Rogers.
Yeah, sniper.
Just
Because a
lend
lot
out
of that
my-
movie
just lend
was.
out my DVD?
Oh yeah, my bad. I'll give it back to you so she can lose it.
All
There was a lot of archival footage in that.
Yeah.
The interviews were very short but very poignant. But I thought I got the most from the archival footage. I mean, if you aren't emotionally moved by the end of that documentary, there's
You're
something
soulless.
wrong with you. There's something,
Yeah.
But
Monotone and joyless.
yeah,
Yeah.
correct. But I think what the Amazing Jonathan and any kind of story of that nature is if you move even 30% of the audience to tears or to like motivation to do something else, you've done your job.
Well, what's going to be fun about this documentary is that once people, if they get to see a trailer, they get to see clips. Like if you Google, you may not, the name The Amazing Jonathan may not be like, oh, I know that guy. As soon as you watch him, you're like, oh, I've seen this guy on
for
TV.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure. So, Steve, and this is this weekend that we can see this.
This weekend, Saturday the 22nd,
Look him in the eye
2
when you
p.m.
talk about him.
Yes, sorry, I was staring at your Doc Martens.
When
Next
was it
time you go to
again?
Hot Topic, take me. So I was,
Will
yeah,
do,
it's Saturday
will
the
do.
22nd at 2 p.m. LA Liftoff Film Festival, and Jonathan and I'll be there to do a Q&A afterwards.
great.
So, look, Jonathan doesn't have much time left.
Yeah.
This is something that means a lot to him. So if you are a Jonathan fan, if you're a comedy fan, if you remember seeing him, come out and support him because I know it's going to mean a lot to him.
Will we be able to see it after the film festival? Will it be online anywhere? Will we be able to?
We're figuring all that out right
Okay,
now,
I see.
as we speak.
I can send out the password to everybody.
Yeah,
if they
please.
want.
Let's
yeah,
do that.
you could just do that. Yeah.
Would you say he's your
I like it
friend
to be worthless.
now?
Yeah.
Are you guys close now?
I've been friends with Jonathan for a while. Joel Osborne, the other subject matter of the film, he and I have been great friends for a long time. He's great. He's somebody I respect. He's a great comic. He's a great friend. And it's something, it's like a relationship I tried to have with Mark early on, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, I was going to
so.
say, between Jonathan, Joel, and Mark Ellis, who would you say best friends? Maybe I have some sort of emotional connection with you that Jonathan and Joel just can't foster.
Yeah, I probably of all the comics of everybody at the Comedy Store, I probably get along like all the comics. Then there's Jeff Scott, and then there's like waitstaff, a parking attendant, and then like Ellis, whatever.
He's not in either of your movies, so
No.
clearly
Yeah,
you don't
there's
like
no-
him that
You're
much.
saying he hasn't seen my Carfax commercials. I keep sending them. So when I was parking
I bring
Steve's
that up to you
car-
once every 3 months. At least. I goes, Mark, just tell me the Carfax.
Steve, it was. It was an absolute pleasure to have you in.
Thank
man.
you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
There's the Carfax commercial right there. It's amazing.
So good.
Look at him. Topher Grace at his best.
I really thought you were in Force Awakens. I thought that was you.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah,
I got a text from him.
Yeah,
I got a
that's-
text from a lot of people
Yeah, he
opening
gets it
weekend
all
of
the time.
that. Yeah.
So, and again, it's at Steve Byrne Live. Or
Steve Byrne Live. That's Steve Byrne
at
Live,
Steve
yeah.
Byrne Live. Check him out. Again, two big
Now we know where
projects
Mark
here.
got his inspiration. Mark Ellis Live, Steve
Steve
Byrne
Byrne, you
Live.
took it from him.
I did not
You
take
ripped
it
him
from. I
off?
probably took it from Steve.
Carlos
I probably took it from
Mencia,
Steve.
motherfucker.
Yeah.
All right.